Welcome to the WRAL Daily Download. I'm Megan Glova. We've got another winter storm on our hands, and with that comes lots of preparations and continuous work from state agencies. Now that really applies to the North Carolina Department of Transportation. Division Maintenance Engineer for Division 5, Doug McNeil, shared some insight Wednesday morning on what goes into NCDOT prep. Also, what you might see from crews on the road in the days to come. Take a listen.
We'll be operating around 240 plow trucks and an additional 80 to 90 support pieces of equipment, support pieces ranging anywhere from motor graders to front-end loaders to help us, in some areas, farm tractors with plows to help clear the snow that we're anticipating. Essentially for us, whenever you can no longer see the lines on the pavement, that's our indication that we need to start spreading material. And then as we get a little more accumulation from there, that's when we drop our blades and start clearing off the roadway. Some of the initial operations that we were doing, we were running 60 trucks across the division. Obviously, as we move to snow and ice actually pushing, we'll be 240 trucks, potentially running over 300 total pieces of equipment out pushing.
Now here's a good quote from Governor Josh Stein.
And while we cannot stop this storm, we can and will respond to it as best we can.
He had mentioned the work NCDOT has done and will do. And again, we hear a lot about NCDOT and their efforts during storms like this. It's very important work. But plenty of other agencies are also ready to respond. Governor Stein shared these details.
More than 180 National Guardsmen and 39 force packages have been activated and dispersed to support local emergency response efforts. Our state's power utilities are pre-positioned to quickly restore electricity if it goes out. Many communities have opened warming stations for those who need refuge from cold temperatures. And you can get that information if there's one in your county on your county's website. The State Highway Patrol has spent the past 24 hours clearing our highways of 273 abandoned cars on road shoulders to make them safer for travel and plowing. Please know that we are using every tool at our disposal to minimize the impact of this storm on you and your family.
Now let's talk safety. NCDOT Secretary Joey Hopkins expects road travel to be treacherous. His words. That's not only today, but going into Friday as well. Take a listen.
We expect many routes to be covered with snow and ice in western, central, and parts of northeastern North Carolina. So please limit unnecessary travel. This will allow our crews, law enforcement, utility workers, and other public safety officials to do their work. Our crews will be working around the clock over the coming days and will not stop until roads are cleared. This does include crews who are or will be out cutting and removing fallen trees and debris as necessary from roads, and also working with our utility partners in spots that involve down power lines. While we will do our best to clear roads as quickly as possible during this event, it will take time with an event like this and as cold as it is and will be. As always, we are prioritizing clearing interstates and then U.S. and NC routes, followed by secondary roads. As conditions improve, please check drivenc.gov for the latest travel information. We ask that you please stay home if you can and stay safe.
So what if you're staying home during all this? Well, Emergency Management Director Will Ray has some tips if your power goes out. And with that, trying to stay warm.
Please ensure that generators are operated outside and away from open windows to prevent carbon monoxide poisoning. Never burn charcoal indoors or use a gas grill indoors. Properly vent kerosene heaters and make sure that all heaters have at least 3 feet of space around them. Use battery-powered sources of light instead of candles to, again, reduce fire risk. And make sure that you have plenty of warm blankets and clothing available.
When we come back, a behind-the-scenes look at how WRAL anchors handle continuous and breaking weather coverage. Welcome back. We're joined now by WRAL News Plus anchor Grace Holland, who throughout Wednesday had to monitor and report on winter weather live alongside our WRAL crew. So, Grace, despite the forecast, these days can be a little unpredictable. So, take us through what it looks like for you and what information you're most focused on getting to the viewers at home.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Megan. It's very much an evolving situation when you're talking about a weather event like this. If you've been watching WRAL News over the last couple of days, we've been sharing a lot of information for how you can get ready. Just know that behind the scenes, we're doing a lot to get ready in terms of staffing to make sure that we have everybody in position to cover this storm from all parts of the viewing area. And do that effectively and be able to get people to the places that do have issues should they happen. And then also here in the building, making sure we have enough producers and crew and anchors, of course, and also making sure we all have food. Believe it or not, this is a day where we get free pizza here. Hopefully our field crews, when they come back, will still be able to get some as well. But I can say as a former field reporter that sometimes you miss out on that.
Right.
So,
yeah. One of the maybe downsides to being out in the field. But explain to us what continuous coverage means and some of the challenges that come with that compared to a normal newscast.
Yeah, I think, for a lot of people who are watching the news closely, you might notice that we are on the air longer in situations like this. Instead of just being on in the morning and then at noon and starting at 4 p.m. through 7:30, we kind of fill in those gaps in there as well. Now, sometimes in continuous coverage, we don't take commercial breaks. Sometimes we do. It really just depends on how big the public safety risk is. Say we're in a tornado warning. Those are situations where we are definitely not going to go to commercial and we're just going to stay with you the whole time versus, with the snow, obviously we are staying on top of it, but we may kind of take a break and come back and those kind of things to give ourselves some time to reset in between that. Yeah,
definitely. And, with safety in mind, you went through a lot Wednesday as far as hearing from state officials, from reporters in the field. What's one safety tip you took away from either them or even our meteorologist during this coverage?
Right, yeah. And we hear it all day long. And again, we're saying these tips a lot of times ahead of time, saying, hey, don't travel if you don't have to. And people hear that, and I am sure for some people it goes in one ear and out the other. But I would encourage you not to do that.
No.
And to take it seriously. We come in to give you guys the information so that you don't have to get out there.
Right.
And our crews that are out in the field are very, very careful when they're driving and things like that. But, I will say in the afternoon on Wednesdays when we really started to see the crashes start to pick up as the snow switched over to more of that wintry mix, that sleet, making the roads a lot more slick. And it just felt like every reporter we were going to, and also we would go to a reporter. For instance, there was at one point in the afternoon on Wednesday, we went to Chelsea Donovan. She was on a bridge over I-40. Things looked okay. She was looking down at I-40. It looked perfectly clear. And she was talking about that in comparison to an overpass bridge that did have some ice on it. And then I think it was 20, 30 minutes later, we come back to her. She's right by a crash on I-40, and the road looks totally different, just covered in this like snow and ice and everything. So that's how quickly things can change. So that's why even if you look on our coverage and you think, it doesn't look too bad, you don't know what's going to happen while you're out. Right. Yeah. So if you don't have to be out, don't be out there. And one thing I probably should have also mentioned, because I'm sure people will be curious when we're talking about continuous coverage. The other thing is that, as from an anchor perspective, we're out there, we're just kind of rolling with what the field crews are showing us in the same way that a viewer is, And, when it's a regular newscast, things are more scripted. Our producers work on those shows all day long, whereas with this, it's sort of, hey, Chelsea, hey, Sean, what are you seeing right now? How are things looking?
What's out there and what's the current update?
Yeah, we'll be listening to one reporter, and usually during that reporter talking, the producer will get in the anchor's ear and say, okay, hey, here's the next couple of people we got, kind of just 2 or 3 people ahead. So we're just rolling as well. But it is amazing to sit there and see how much things can change in situations like this.
Yeah, some very important work from both you and the rest of the WRAL team. Grace, thanks so much.
Thank you.
And you can find more podcasts from WRAL News at WRAL.com. Search podcast. From sports to true crime and even weather, there are plenty of shows to keep you informed and entertained. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.